I'm going to share a true mythology which begins with myself. I grew up in eastern Tibet and was raised by my grandparents who were very kind-hearted. Even though I went to a Buddhist monastery later, I often regard my grandparents as my first spiritual teachers. They shared a lot of sacred narratives, parable stories with me often, and also they were very much ancient people. They are shamans in my understanding. They live in a mythology every day. They also have this sacred perception of life and the natural world. They believe that everything's alive. Every existence, trees, rocks, fire, river, animals, they're alive. Not only that, they're living sacred. Spending years with them was like living in a realm of mythology filled with magics and also sacred. When I look back, I feel I have been living in this world with them that is real as well as also unreal. And then finally I went to the monastery and start practice in Buddhist tradition. In Buddhism, we say the highest insight, most profound epiphany a human being can experience is the bodhi or the awakening or the enlightenment. There are many ways of define what enlightenment is, but in some sense enlightenment is this radical epiphany that everything's just a story, life's a story, or the Maya, the illusion. This is not about rejecting life as unreal, but to see life as this magical story, this magical mythology that is always unfolding continuously. Yet it is a little bit mysterious, unpredictable, poetic, uncontrollable, sacred. And also with this deep realization, we began to see that we can be the creator of our own life. We can write stories. We can write beautiful stories, sacred stories, stories of love, compassion, courage, as well as also this awakening tells us that if we take this mythology, this true mythology called life too seriously, then we may end up being deluded and we may suffer. And that's why here the Maya, or this idea that life is illusion, is not so much about rejecting life, but to see this life is amazing, playful, sacred dance that is unreal and yet extremely real, and that we should hold it as a beautiful flow of many stories and journeys, and not to concretize it, not trying to hold on to it, not trying to make it more mechanical. These days I feel that we are very much disconnecting from the sacred narratives. I was talking with somebody just a few minutes ago, or maybe 20 or 30 minutes ago, that there are many dimensions in our life that we can love. There's a mythological dimension, and the archetypal dimension, and the self-owned dimension. And I told that most people are loving only one dimension, that is a self-owned dimension. And and this is true. There's nothing wrong with this self-owned dimension, which is the reality of practicality, survival. And when we live too much only in this dimension, we begin to feel that everything's just mechanical, ordinary, nothing has spirit. And then as consequences of that disconnection, sometimes we feel a sense of boredom, meaningless, and drudgeriness with the everyday life existence. This is why perhaps many people are quite lonely, depressed, and feeling that there's this deep vacuum inside, and not finding joy, beauty in everyday existence. But if we can wake up and able to live and to be in touch with those other dimensions, and then we may find more magic, sacred, and joy, as the Native Americans say, walk in beauty. Many years ago, I was leading 5 days or 6 days meditation retreat in Kenyan Deshe. I was talking about this whole idea of to wake up and to see that there's a sacred everywhere. And I was telling people that if you can recognize the sacred of everything, then you'll be this joy all the time. And then the medicine woman from one of the tribe was there as a tour guide. She said, what you're talking about is exactly what we have been talking about. We call this walking in beauty. So let me tell you a little bit my own experience working with the sacred narratives, mythology, and also archetype. My tradition uses a lot of archetypes, sacred archetypes, like Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. One of the sacred archetypes that I have developed affinity with is Avalokiteshvara, known as the Buddha of compassion. By the way, Buddhism is a non-theistic and non-dualistic religion. We don't reject the external deities, but we also don't talk about, or we don't really teach the deities outside of yourself. So Avalokiteshvara is just a powerful archetype. I was taught to recite the name of Avalokiteshvara at a very early age by my grandparents. They will recite this mantra, name of Avalokiteshvara, every evening with us. The mantra goes Om Mani Padme Hum, and this is perhaps the most recited mantra in Tibetan culture. Everybody learn how to recite this mantra at an early age. People usually recite this mantra when they feel lost, confused, when they don't know how to overcome their inner demons. Then with that archetype, there's a beautiful legend of Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is also called Chandrisak in Tibetan means one who gazes upon the whole world eternally. It is said that once he vowed to be in this world, human world, and to awaken, and to liberate, and to save everybody. And then he came to this human world and liberated everybody, enlightened everybody. And then he thought, now this human world is empty, everybody is enlightened. He was ready to take eternal rest. When he looked back, he realized that the world is full of people more than ever. Everybody is confused and lost. Then he come back, he did that 6 times as his vow. And finally he realized that he can't really save this world. And then he decided to give his vow, which is to enlighten the entire world completely. And then he fell apart. And he was in this great agony. He was totally saddened and disappointed by losing his sacred vow, as well as see that he can't really change this world completely. And then the story goes, another Buddha, Amitabha, arises and blessed him. Also, the story says when Avalokiteshvara fell apart, his body fell apart into pieces. And then Buddha Amitabha blessed this broken body into 1,000 armed Avalokiteshvaras. Now we have many forms of Avalokiteshvaras, 4-armed Avalokiteshvaras, 1,000 armed Avalokiteshvaras. The 1,000 armed Avalokiteshvaras symbolize this altruism, this tireless altruism, and that you always engage with the world and to help every living being to the best of your ability. And personally, this archetype is very important for me because as a human being, we all go through pain and suffering. And especially if we are courageous enough and if we open our heart enough, we'll find that every human being has to go through some kind of trials, tribulations in their life, and there are many moments that we can fall apart. As a Buddhist teacher, I must tell you that personally I went through lots of pain in my life, internal pain, and also I fell apart many times. I feel sometimes a despondency, hopelessness, and this is not actually old story. This happened just recently, 1 week ago. I was leading a silent meditation retreat for 5 days with quite a large group of people, and at one point I totally fell apart. I felt this beautiful despondency for some reason, and I allowed myself to fall apart and invite everybody to fall apart. And not only that, I wrote a poem about it. Perhaps some of you may have read it. And this is about basically embracing all our suffering and also the wrath, the pain, the challenges that the human life present, and embracing all our challenges, our suffering, our hardships, not as an obstacle, not as an intrinsically detrimental force that we should try to run away or to reverse. Instead, there are these amazing dharmas, blessings in a disguise, bestowed upon us by the universe as a spiritual lessons, and that teach us how to be strong, how to be authentic, how to grow inside, how to be mature, and how to be true bodhisattva, a sacred warrior, warrior of love and compassion. And so I try to apply the archetype of Avalokiteshvara, and this has been extremely helpful. I cannot really say where I am on this spiritual journey, but I can tell you that at least I developed this perspective, and that suffering and pain are not bad. Of course, I don't go around and to look for sufferings intentionally, and yet I feel I'm trying to open my heart all the time to everything that life brings to me, both joy, sadness, peace, wrath, happiness, and suffering, and then not to run away from especially conditions that are very challenging, but to embrace them and knowing that they are blessings. And so if I take them blessings, in the end, actually, I'm going to get something so valuable, precious, inner wealth, a spiritual wealth. And knowing that I'm going to actually grow from embracing challenges, I will learn how to be more compassionate and more selfless and happier too as a human being. And also the stories are very powerful. In Buddhism we tell lots of stories. There's a whole story, collection of stories known as the Jatakas. And these are actually the stories of bodhisattvas. I also tell sometimes the people that every human being can be in bodhisattvas. You can be a Christian bodhisattva, Muslim bodhisattva, Buddhist bodhisattva. A bodhisattva means the sacred warrior, the warrior of love and the courage, who's not afraid of embracing the human life, who's not afraid of embracing the full flavor and mightiness of this human life, which is so beautiful, vibrant, intense, sometimes too strong, and sometimes so magical. And these stories, Jatakas, are actually stories about how we can embrace this human journey as a path of bodhisattva. These stories tells us that this human life is a journey. This human life is not so much about getting stuck with some kind of egoic small identity and then working for one's own need and trying to have some kind of conventional security. This human life is much more than that. I think sometimes we miss the spiritual, the mythological, the sacred dimension of life, and we reduce this beautiful human life into very mechanical reality. And usually what we do, we hold on to some kind of conventional identity, whatever that means, and then we create some kind of life, survival life, and then we are very much usually lost in trying to create and maintain sense of security, and then we miss the big picture of this life. So this life is much more than serving oneself, or more than just having some kind of comfort or solace or security, but it's a journey, it's a mythical journey, it's a hero's journey, it's a heroine's journey. And this journey is very long, has no end. This journey goes all the way to until we die. This journey is a bodhisattva's journey. It's all about how to face challenges, difficulties, and learning to grow inside, learning to become more compassionate, learning how to forgive, learning how to expand our heart, and learning to love unconditionally, not just oneself, not just one's family members, but also people we call enemies. And this is the sadhana lesson that we learn on this journey. But this learning has no end. There won't be moment where we can say, I finished this journey. This journey will continue forever. I have a 57, only 2 seconds. Right? One more minute? Oh, okay, yes. See, about mythology, it never stops. The sacred narratives, 24 hours, our sacred channel, sacred narrative channel, sacred news channel. Thank you, everybody.